Hello. For everybody waiting for the breakfast to be served, it's actually over in the far corner. So this morning, it's self-serve. So just want to make sure everyone's aware. Hello. Okay. It's 8:30. I think people are getting tired. I know I was. I snuck out a little bit early from Delula's big fish potlatch, and I think I fell asleep by about 8:30. I was so tired, so I understand. Let me see. First off, let me ask if Andy, would you come up and do our opening prayer for us this morning? Andy. And then while he's coming up, a couple things before we finish today. So after the panel or panels, we're going to do the convention survey drawing. So anyone that hasn't done it yet, go back to the self-gov table and get your convention survey done. That's how we're going to set the agenda for March. Also, the flyer that was shared yesterday, I want to give a little plug for FNA. They worked on this history of FNA video that will premiere at the Morris Thompson Center tonight at 6 and 7:30. So anybody that's here for the weekend, if you're looking for something to do, if you're not watching the Mike Tyson fight, you'll be able to go to the Morris Thompson Center. There we go. And watch that history video. I think that's my two announcements. So if you'll open us up with prayer, please.
Thank you. Heavenly Father, we thank you for today. Lord, we just give you all the praise and the glory. Lord, we pray that you will be with us today on our last day of the special convention. Lord, we pray that you will be with our families. Watch over them, our people in the Chief Region. We pray that you will comfort the people that lost their loved ones lately. Lord, we just pray that you will give us all a safe trip home. And Lord, we just thank you for all the blessings that we received in the past. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Andy. Okay. Well, we're prepared for a couple different scenarios this morning. Uh-oh. Okay. Okay, there are flu, RSV, and COVID shots in the Rampart room? Okay. So just as a reminder for everyone, if you're wanting to get any of those shots, you can do that today. And then, let me see. So welcome back for our last day of the Fall Special Convention. Yesterday, we focused on self-determined solutions to reach healthy communities and reclaim our people in each of our subregions. We heard updates from health and received information on arming VPSOs. So today, what we were originally prepared for was the Q&A session on the VPSO arming. And so being that we pushed that vote from today till March, I wasn't quite sure if you still wanted to do some Q&A on VPSO arming or not. Yes? Okay. And we, how many of our questions you have. Ultimately, what we want is for our tribes to feel like you have the information you need so that when you go back home, you'll be able to have the discussions. And more than anything, as you leave here today, don't feel like you can't reach out to us. I believe, and Amber can correct me if I'm wrong, we've been trying to share the PowerPoint with all the tribes so you have it. But especially if you're going to have a council meeting or anything like that, if you want to invite any of our folks to attend and be able to try to answer questions or anything like that, we're more than happy to do that. I just want to make sure that by the time between now and March, your tribes feel like you have the information you need to be able to make that decision. So I'll hand it over to Amber, who's...
Oh, did they want to do Q&A?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't catch that part.
Oh, yeah, and our attorney didn't get to speak yesterday, so maybe she'll get a chance to answer some questions too. Okay.
We at the end we're gonna ask for a motion to defer it to the March convention. Is it on?
Okay.
Good morning. So we gave all the information about arming yesterday afternoon, and we're available for any questions the body may have. Or if you want clarifications. And there was one comment made yesterday about if we were to arm officers to make sure they have body cams. And David actually has an answer to that.
Yeah, I just want to let everybody know that as of about 2 weeks ago, all VPSOs in the state of Alaska were issued body-worn cameras. So that's already implemented and in use. So,
Percy?
Yeah. Good morning. Well, I guess starting this off, I want to thank Chief Green for putting in a request for bringing it home to your tribes and getting more feedback, because I was wondering myself yesterday, over the last couple of days actually, and whether if we're going to vote, and this is a big deal for the organization. I think with now, knowing that, for instance, you have liability that's going to be involved, and also people's lives, not only the officers, but people out there in the rural areas. And speaking from Kaikuk, we never had law enforcement there for, I want to say 15 years. I might be wrong, but in that neighborhood. And prior to that, I know I lived there all my life, so we're having like homicides like every 10 years. And to deal with something like that is, it really impacts the whole community, because it's like any other village you're related to. Everybody's related. And I have mixed feelings about this. I'm not going to tell you whether I'm going to vote it up or vote it down, because I haven't yet met with my tribe, but I did get some feedback from a couple of people that I hold confidence in. So, that's just a little bit of my thoughts. And I just want to get this thing going. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have a question in your VPSO insurance. What do you mean by the most paid out in the last 5 years with no arming was 200,000?
So until this year, none of the VPSO contractors armed their officers. And so the most paid out for insurance claims for all 10 contractors in the state was 200,000. So our current insurance is at 10 million. And in the past 5 years, the most paid out was 200,000. So that's just to kind of give you a view of what kind of claims. It doesn't really give you what kind of claims, but what kind of payouts have been happening. And so the VPSO program statewide is currently doing very well on claims. And that's a good thing.
For Yukon. I believe
Does
that
someone-
VPSO's,
Can someone recognize you?
Dennis. You,
I'll recognize Darlene.
Thank you.
thank you. I believe that VPSO go through the same training as the state troopers. So it's a good thing that they're carrying a gun because they're already trained to carry a gun. And a lot of situations in the villages needs to be carried a gun. And I think it's a good thing because they were trained. So I have no arguments with VPSO carrying guns. I think it's a good thing for us Native people in the villages.
Thank you. Yes, Chief Patsy.
Good morning. You said that TCC currently carries insurance at 10 million right now for the VPSO program.
So it's 10 million that we share with all 10 VPSO contractors in the state. The VPSOs are not insured by our TCC insurance, and we did research and we cannot do a double insure because of our purchase of the hotel. We have a little thing in there that says we can't double insure. So we can either be insured with the VPSO program or find our own policy, but then there's no way we could find our own policy.
If the state of Alaska decides to, or if TCC decides to arm VPSOs, are there any other organizations in the state of Alaska that already allows their VPSOs to be armed?
Yep. So the Northwest Arctic Borough, they're not a nonprofit like TCC. They're a municipality, but they have armed their officers. And I saw someone here. But they began arming their officers this year. They do, because they're a government agency, they're able to get additional insurance. So they have insurance for each of their officers, whereas we're not able to get that separate insurance. We have to share it with the state. And Tlingit and Haida, they're currently bringing the decision to the board, just like us. And Copper River Native Association is, they're just thinking about it right now.
Has the state of Alaska had any conversations as to whether or not they'll raise that 10 million if more organizations start arming their VPSOs?
That's a really good question. So last year, one of our big concerns with arming our VPSOs was the insurance was actually only at 5 million. And we were really concerned at that level. And that's why we were researching what other options does TCC have to insure our VPSO program. Since then, it was actually cheaper for the state to do the 10 million because I think that also shows it's less risky to have more insurance for the program. And so the state went to the $10 million claim. And really, we can't really say it's enough. Do you think it's enough based on what assets we have, based on things that we want to protect as an organization? Because once that 10 million is gone, which has not happened in the history of the VPSO program, we haven't used all of the insurance that all of us 10 grantees share. But if that happens, then it would likely be TCC responsible for any claims after that. But at the same time, it hasn't happened. So, yes.
Thank you. Would the VPSOs be part of the state retirement system under PERS?
No, the VPSOs are a TCC employee, so they receive all of TCC benefits, including our retirement.
That's if they put 20 years in, right?
Sorry, what was that?
That's if they put 20 years in? They could, and that, under that, fall under that?
Yes. I hear a yes.
I would think that you would know that, but I had to hear the answer from my right side.
Chief, we can verify that, but they would be eligible for the same benefits, and it's my understanding that it's 4 years for, we have a retirement plan, and then to be fully vested, it's 4 years. So they would do that. And the reason they don't qualify for the state PERS is because we are a contractor with the state for the VPSO program. So they're kind of a hybrid between the state having required to follow the state requirements for the VPS program, but they are technically TCC employees.
The reason why I asked this question because nothing came across my desk as a tribal chief. So we're all in the blind here. Somehow, administration didn't pass this on to all of us in our tribes.
We did share information at sub-regionals that this was going to be on this agenda. And also in first call and official call, we had a little one-pager of the arming. We're hoping if you could bring back this information, I can also send it via email to all the tribes and the chiefs. And then I welcome to have meetings with your councils, with your communities, if you're interested, between now and March, so you guys can make an informed decision. Oh, Chief Green, sorry.
Thank you. As being a first responder, us in Galena, our experience was, with all the situations that go on, I know how dangerous it is out there, and putting our young men out there, and a lot of our VPSOs are Native men too, that, I don't know the percentage or anything, but that probably shouldn't make a difference, but, whatever, anybody we put out there, but even with we have troopers in Galena, and still we can't, since they're not actually stationed in Galena, they are stationed to fly out of Galena. So if you want to call a state trooper, you have to call Fairbanks. It mostly, at the earliest a state trooper can respond is probably in an hour. And, we've had incidents even last year where the doctors told us if you didn't get that patient to our clinic within a half hour, she would have died. And the trooper came over a half hour later than after we had apprehended the guy, got the girl to the clinic. And there's situations. And not only that, when we talk with the troopers about it, even the troopers say, I know you guys are doing a good thing and maybe have saved her life, but when we respond and see you guys with a gun, you guys, us, Native guys, he said, we'd shoot you. If you have a gun, we'll shoot you. That's because we don't know who's the bad guys, good guys. So not only are we, that we're fighting the bad guys, we have to deal with the troopers, and, because we don't have badges so I think it's really important to get VPSOs and people we can trust and, to help, because, most like Leo and our Percy, Chief Walnut says that, there's no troopers for 15, 20 years. And in Galena, it's the same with us. They don't, we've responded a bunch to real dangerous situations. To me, money for us finding out about insurance, as long as I think we're covered, then, I don't think we should really put a price tag, because it could be a really bad situation, and we shouldn't be putting money, worrying about too much, I mean, I'm sure we want to be covered, but, we train our VPSOs like we do troopers, anybody. I think we should be okay, Thank you.
Go ahead.
Second Chief McGrath, I had a question. Now, if a community wants an unarmed VPSO, are we going to be able to get one? I mean, it sounds like they're all training to be armed. Are they going to want to work unarmed?
Yes, so a community can still determine if this arming was approved, if they want an armed officer in their community or not. And we would be asking for a tribal resolution saying the community approves to have an armed officer. And we would be sending unarmed officers to the community.
Yeah, but unarmed, do you even have any VPSOs that are in training now that say they wish to be unarmed and trained?
And that's something that we'll have to discuss as we're creating the pilot project. The pilot project we're proposing is just to arm 3 VPSOs so that we can learn as an organization, see how it goes before we take the next step and arm additional VPSOs. So we
Okay.
want to do some learning before we just arm them all at once.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks.
Yes, Chief Karma?
Can you just tell us a little more about the training requirements? I mean, I see that, is that kind of more in line with what the troopers do? And just tell us a little more about the training that for the firearms.
Yes, I can have David talk about it.
So currently, our training has changed and it's evolved over the years. For most of our officers, they've gone through the full Alaska law enforcement training, which is side by side with Alaska State Troopers, which means that they've received firearms training the same as an Alaska State Trooper. About a year ago, they decided to make some changes, and they have pulled out the firearms training. So any officer that has not received that training would then be sent back. It's usually about a 21-day training. And again, that goes through everything from the marksmanship aspects, the decision-making, and all of those things that go along with that. So, the marksmanship piece it's absolutely important, but the decision-making that goes with that is far more vital to it. The decision about whether the tool is necessary for the situation, and then again, what's going on in the environment at the time. So those situations are constantly evolving, and an officer needs to make a smart decision on if that tool is the appropriate tool right now, and is the appropriate tool still still the necessary tool in 3 seconds, 30 seconds, or whatever. So they need to be able to process the situation and continue to decide, how to proceed with things. So to kind of answer your question, most of our officers have already received the same training that the state troopers, municipal police officers have received. Again, we have about a year's worth, so 2 academies really of officers that didn't get that training that would have to go back for additional training. But future officers would go, again, back to the full academy and receive, again, side-by-side training with the troopers.
Okay. So anyway, good morning. What I was curious about is as you're talking about this pilot project, are you putting in place excessive force policy as you're implementing this? The reason why I raised that is that, during the time I was working for F&A, we have consistently have approached a city government and the police department here in Fairbanks regarding excessive force policy. And we really haven't been really successful in that, you know. So I think the idea of having an armed VPSO is a good thing. But I also believe that you really need to think about that excessive force policy that these officers will be following, you know. So if it's along the lines of state troopers, it's along the lines of state troopers and municipality governments, that would be really concerning to me. Because I think we've experienced already, just in Fairbanks alone, how that policy has been implemented. That has had a very serious impact on our people here in Fairbanks, our native people. And so as you're going along on this, implementing this, I would just urge you to take a look at a policy that would be reasonable. You know, not one that your immediate reaction is just shoot. And so I think that's something that, again, that you all need to kind of take a look at and review and, you know. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. And one of the policies listed that we'll have to create if we do move forward is a policy on use of force. Another policy, just like David was talking about, is on training and recertification, which would talk about the importance of decision making, because the decision making helps you decide what use of tool or use of force that our officers are using. Yes, Chief Curtis.
Good morning. You know, I'm having had relations in the law enforcement field. You know, I'm glad they were safe. This arming the VPSOs, you know, that's left to each tribe if they want their VPSOs armed. There's situations, you know, that will call for it. But, you know, that's for each tribe to decide with their councils. But my thing is the psychological aspect of it, you know. How long are they tested psychologically? Just to ensure, you know, that their minds are okay. Because my past experience was one was his demeanor was meant to deliberately set somebody off who was borderline with their behavior, with under the influence of alcohol or whatever. And for me, that was just so the VPSO could get a trip into Fairbanks and spend the weekend in Fairbanks and then go back to the village on Monday. But the psychological, could you explain how long they are tested and all that?
I can ask if David can answer about the psychological eval.
So the psychological eval is actually a 2-day process. It's there's a test portion where the officer spends hours filling out this test form, and then that test that is evaluated by a doctor, and then they spend about a half a day meeting with a psychologist to review that, and then that doctor does his assessment and submits his report.
Is there any follow-up at a later date?
So if we had a concern about an officer, can we
Right.
ask for an eval?
Absolutely. Yeah. If there's a need or if there is a concern, we can always retest.
I'm Charlie. This VPSO program, the history, Right now, today, there isn't very many natives on the force. At least in the villages, I don't see any. One time, my brother was a VPSO, and my friend, my neighbor, in our community of Minto. You know, the mental anguish it took to become a VPS for them, to overcome some of the things they went through. I think it was terrible. You know, I went through the police academy and fireman academy, and it was good. I learned a lot. But then I thought about what my brother went through. You know, his life came to an end at a very young age. Both of those guys from Minto, they had families, and it wore on them terribly. They both, their life ended at a very young age when they had a lot of life to live yet. And I think, and I talked to him, and he said, you know, whatever you do, don't become a VPSO. He said, it's too much on your mind. Now you have to take, he said, they wanted me to be a state trooper, but I couldn't see taking another life if I had to. Those strains that comes along with become a officer in our community. When you have to know you have the firearm, and there's situations where you would have to do this. So I'm saying, I don't know how it would be on our people to do it on your own, my own neighbor. So it's, that's the situation our people will have to try to understand. And I have myself have a hard time. I don't know how I'll vote. But then too, then you think this world is changing. You think of the drugs and alcohol that comes into the villages, especially on the road system. We see it in Minto all the time. And how we'd cope with it, if the situation comes up, maybe we wish we had a armed VPSO. And I know it's something that we'll have to think about and talk about in our community. But you know, you think about in the past what happened with Silka. There was no VPSO there. He took 7 lives, and some of our neighbors, some of the people we knew. And then the other predator, they don't know, but there was four Native women that they never could put a finger on him, but he was arrested on the road system. Those things we wonder. We wonder if it's possible. But yeah, I'm glad I took my brother's advice and not become a VPSO because of what happened to him and his counterpart, Larry. But you know, is there any treatment? Do you guys go through training, treatment, or what am I calling it? Do you meet together and say, hey, this is what
This is kind of like a critical incident
Yes.
stress debriefing. We do have a team. We also have through the Department of Public Safety, many aspects or many tools available to us for our mental health. There are plenty of resources, plus TCC has an employment assistance program that we utilize. So our officers have utilized all of those tools at one time or another.
I'm just saying, it's I know for our community, I'm only speaking for Minto, but I'm sure a lot of our leaders are thinking about this too. You know, is it too much to ask or think about? You know, I have a hard time, yet I know if the situation come down, I know I want to be protected by something. especially on the road system. And like Steve was talking, I'm sure the Indiana Council, they have a VPSO there in the municipality or Tok, those areas. So I just want to know, I hope they do, I would, in a way, I would like to see more native VPSO, but I think a lot of them are thinking like me. Thank you.
If I could also respond, Chief, too. A lot of the questions I think we have gotten received in the future, in the past have been insurance related. But as Chief Green has pointed out, insurance is a tough call, right? It's hard to predict the future. And since none of the contractors have had a VPS, arming, it's just recent. So that's something that we'll just continue to keep an eye on. But I think some of the questions have been led to the policies. And so I know yesterday, Amber did point out a slide on the policies, but I just want to assure that the policies are a huge part of this process. And it's more than just writing on the paper. It's something that, as Steve Guinness had also pointed out, it's really important that it'll be a collaboration internally, because it's the most important part of this process is to make sure that the VPSO program and officers, as well as the communities, feel safe and that there's processes in place, not just with the training, but also in the event there is a shooting, that everybody is protected and that the policies are followed. So one of the things that we will be looking at is we are been working with the North Slope to look at their policies, but we will be making policies that are relevant to our communities, our region, as well as looking at, obviously we'll look at the state troopers policies and other ones as guidance, but we will definitely be looking at to form our policies, working with the VPSO program and working with other agencies to make sure that it fits the needs of our region. So if there's any questions as that is being processed or any as developed with councils, that's something we definitely want people to ask in the next few months. And we're happy to answer those kind of questions, because I think people just want to make sure that we have things in place for before and after of any of their incidents, and that people are protected, both the officers as well as the communities.
Chief.
Sorry for the questions, but as we're having this discussion, more questions keep coming up. As a community that has had a VPSO and then had him quit and leave, I know how hard it is to go from having that security and then to not have it. And we know that throughout the TCC region, there are villages that don't have VPSOs because there aren't enough applicants. Do you think, or do you foresee, does the state of Alaska foresee that if we start arming VPSOs that we might have more applicants for our subregion?
Yes, and that was information I think on one of the slides. Last year, we had 15 applicants pull their application because they learned the position was unarmed.
And that doesn't include the officer or, the potential applicants that never applied because they knew it was unarmed.
Chief Eliza, and then I'll go to the mic.
Elias, but that was pretty close anyway.
Oh.
I guess I have a couple things here. Like you just mentioned, like 12 candidates pulled their application last year, and then 5 officers left because the position, they were not armed officers. And I think all of us here, we're all weighing the pros and cons. We see the good and the bad things that could potentially happen. But I'm kind of concerned about if we all do vote and this does become a thing where VPSOs are armed, I'm kind of concerned of the type of candidate that might attract potentially. So I guess I'm really concerned with the psychological evaluation and the vetting process of who you're choosing, because we don't want to choose someone who sees like, oh, wow, this is a good entry-level way into, a law enforcement. I get to have a gun. We don't want cowboys or whatever, quote unquote, who just want a gun and be able to police the village, So I think it's something we need to look at very carefully. And also, when you're talking about the insurance yesterday and workman's comp and things like that, the potential if, Lord forbid, something goes awry and there's a wrongful shooting, TCC bears the brunt of that responsibility. I'm just wondering, how does TCC feel about that? Are you guys ready for that if something does go wrong?
So for your first question, I'll actually ask if David could answer to share how they do field training and how they train new recruits.
Yes, so every officer that comes through the program, they spend at least 6 weeks with multiple field training officers. So these are our senior officers who have been through a certification process to be, in essence, a mentor. And so we partner them in order to ensure that we have an evaluation process to monitor these folks and to make sure that any of these concerns are addressed and either corrected or, again, maybe they're not a good fit. And the culture of the VPSO program is much different than say, a state trooper or a municipal police officer. So the culture is a big aspect of what what we're looking for in those candidates. And so we spend a lot of time really focused on, are they a good fit? Are they understanding the need to build the relationships in the communities? That this is not, a VPSO is not just a police officer. There's so much more to the job. So what we do better than anybody else, and I've been a police officer elsewhere, community-oriented policing is our focus. I refer to it as proactive policing. We immerse ourselves in the community and we get out there and we try to prevent crime, right? I don't want there to become a victim. I want to prevent victims. And so that's the culture that we try to bring, and we try to impart upon new officers. So we spend a lot of time with that aspect.
And the second part of your question was if TCC is prepared if there is a critical incident. So we do currently have a critical incident policy that we've passed. I think it's been like 10 years now, that has our procedures of what we do if a critical incident happens with our VPSO officers, who to notify, what all the different procedures. So we do have that, and it would be a team of executive managers. So Robin, myself, Chief Ridley, communications, that we'd be all working together to address the incident. At the mic. Okay.
Daryl Frank from the village of Minto. I'm in support of VPSOs carrying sidearms, guns, whatever. I served as the tribal police officer there and the VPSO. I was in the village of Minto on the day Michael Silka drove in. The VPSO then was Larry Charlie. He would come to my house. He said, I'll be back in 5 minutes. 5 minutes later, he'd come get me, and I would get in the vehicle and meet him at the store. I was armed. He wasn't. I was his backup. He didn't have to say, I need you to bring your gun. I understood. I went into the store. I made eye contact with Michael Silka. I nodded at him. He nodded back at me. A blank stare, expressionless, evil. I went back out and I told VPSO Larry Charlie that I did not see anything out of ordinary other than his expressionless face. So we watched him and followed him out the road until he left the village of Minto. And that's when he went on to Manly and shot a bunch of people down there, killed them, murdered them. The only other issue with arming VPSOs is you're going to have tribal members possibly get shot. That's a whole new issue there. And you're going to have to vote accordingly and think about that. So as I said in the beginning, I am in support of VPSOs being armed just because of the way the situation in the world is going, and you have unstable, mentally ill people roaming the face of the earth in the state of Alaska on the road and river system. Thank you.
Thank you. And then I'll get you.
First Chief of Manley. I know David because he's near Minto. He's in Minto, and I'm all for it. But like you say, I still have to go and ask the people, because where I'm at is there's people coming and going, people's changing, and we never did have a police officer in Manly. But I know there's things that goes on that's illegally, and I personally would like a officer in Manly, or come and go pretty much. But like Charlie was saying, Chief Charlie was saying, was the response, because it could get worse by the time the state trooper gets to Manly, because they go by the road, so it's at least 4 hours to get there. That's just on the move, though. I mean, that's not getting ready and getting there and all that. So, you know, it may save a lot of grief if the response is sooner. Like Charlie was saying, it could go. And beside the road system, and now it's got longer. It goes to Tanana now. So yeah, there's a lot of people out there that is against a lot of things that we do, and they don't really appreciate it or don't listen to how our policies or what our village is supposed to be like, you know. And these are just people that come in from wherever. They think they can just make their own law, rule, or anything because it's not there. So I'm all for you guys, but still we have to vote on it. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Chief Karma, then I'll go to the mic. And Ivan.
I really think it's really important to have community meetings almost on this. And I would like to have a community meeting like with all my tribal members at home, not just the council, because it affects a lot of people. Also, highly recommend like cultural or diversity trainings for VPSOs on our culture and things at home. And then, you know, I'm sure a lot of us have experienced violence in our communities, and our troopers are almost 6 to 8 hours away. And we had to experience that violence for long periods of time. I mean, just knowing that person was still in the village for like 8 hours and we weren't sure what to do. I mean, that's traumatizing. And in efforts as a chief, I have really built relationships with the troopers and stuff to make sure that we have more, but even have more presence. But even for us, our logistics is so hard to get to for troopers, and there's not always a lot of troopers on, say, in the Tok region. And so I think this would be very good for us if we could get all those trainings and get a buy-in from the communities. But I also wanted to just get David's perspective on this. You've been a VPSO for a long time. You've probably seen the different rates of crime. And how do you feel about this and for VPSOs?
So that's a great question. Again, 10 years of doing this unarmed, I will tell you that I started out and I was told it was an armed position, only to learn that there were delays and issues. And so what I will tell you is that I have learned that we do something much better than most law enforcement, which is talk. Our officers go through, crisis intervention training, de-escalation tactics, things like that. Our ability to get out and build those relationships in the communities is vital to our success and our safety. But it doesn't guarantee our safety. There are people who have shown up in the villages and they've turned out to be very dangerous people. We've had, there was just an incident in August, not in our region, but it's actually in Southwest. An officer showed up to a domestic violence scene. The man answered the door with a shotgun, pointed it at the officer. Thankfully, he was able to back out. He called the Alaska State Troopers. They sent in the CERT team. Sometime between those two events, unfortunately, he killed his girlfriend. And so, unfortunately, that officer has to live with the fact, of questioning every day, should I have done something differently? And so, again, we can always Monday morning quarterback these things. We don't know what, if he had been armed, what that would have changed. But it's certainly a question. And again, as we see rising drug rates in our communities, especially with methamphetamine, the hostility of our suspects is just increasing. The violence towards victims with our domestic violence, it's increasing. And so while we've been very successful, very, very lucky, I think, in not having an officer seriously injured, honestly, I think it's a matter of time, unfortunately.
So I have the mic, Chief Ivan, Chief Walker, and then I see Spud. And do you need to be recognized? Or
Second Chief
okay.
of Manly, William Woods. I was just curious about tribal police officers. Are there any tribal police officers in the state now? And what the difference is between a tribal police officer and a VPSO? Is there a difference? Is one more effective? I don't know. I'm kind of curious about tribal police officers too. Thank you.
So tribal peace officers are hired by the tribe themselves, and they carry out the tribal codes. They don't carry out state law. So TCC actually does have, we have three tribal peace officers. Are they all rovers? Sorry.
No, we have one in Huslia, one in Tanana, and we have a rover out of Fairbanks.
And so the only codes they can carry out is the tribe's codes. They can't carry out state law. And then can you share about their training and what the difference is?
So the training for a tribal peace officer or a village police officer it's usually, I think it's 3 weeks in Bethel. And so it's a much shorter training. I haven't seen the training, myself, so I can't speak to what all is there.
Are they armed?
They can be armed. Ours are not, but there are armed village police officers and tribal police officers in other parts of the state.
Okay, so they have different training than a VPSO, a lot shorter, and then they.
And the arming qualification doesn't happen at the academy for those. I don't know who is qualifying those officers. Because they're hired by the tribes, I assume that the tribe is managing that.
Thank you.
So I have Chief Ivan.
Respectively, Chief Walker had his hand up before me,
okay.
so if I could go after him.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Demento. I got about 3 questions. Like, how many of our subregions have 911? Like, the Lower Yukon subregion, we put in for that over 10 years ago, and we have it now. And when we do call 911, it goes to Bethel. Then if it is busy in Bethel, it's routed all the way to Fairbanks. And the structure under what department is this going to be, the VPSO program? Is it under the Justice Department? I mean, the question is that it should be a separate organization of VPSO, because if we're going to be running it under the Justice Department, then they have to follow whatever rules are set. But there are rules set by the state of Alaska that we have to follow, even as citizens of Alaska. Then we would have to probably look at internal affairs for this VPSO program. And in that internal affair, there should be at least one internal affair AST or a local police department. So these are questions that I would ask and ensure that, because if something should happen out in the village, who handled the internal affairs? I mean, even though we're federal recognized tribes, we fall under a law, but we also fall under the Alaska State Troopers, the state of Alaska's laws too also. And that was my question there. Could you answer them, please?
Do you know the 911? So we'll have to get back to you on the 911 for the region. We can get that information and provide it. As for the department, the VPSO program is within the Tribal Protection and Safety Division. That division houses public safety, which includes VPSOs and our tribal peace officers, reentry, tribal protective services, which is our victims of crime program, and MMIP. So all of those are in a single division, which is under tribal government and client services. As for internal affairs, it depends on what the incident was. We do have to follow standard operation procedures, SOPs, that we have signed with the state of Alaska. So if it's an incident that requires us to follow certain guidelines, we'll have to follow the state guidelines, but we're also following TCC policy at the same time. So we'll be working with HR and legal on if there's internal affairs matters. And did you want to add something, David?
Chief, all of our use of forces, any incident that has any use of force requires a special report that's reviewed by the Department of Public Safety, and we have a internal affairs officer that does all of those investigations already. So that would continue.
Thank you for that. Thank you for the answer. And then one other question. When we do travel to the Lower Yukon from here, we go through Nikolai, and Nikolai doesn't have a phone system. TCC is going to have to talk to GCI, AT&T, and somebody, because we can't call anybody with our phones because we have GCI phones in the Lower Yukon. Thank you.
Chief Ivan?
Yes, thank you. Chief Demenda for Lower Yukon. I want to acknowledge the comments in the room here today by leadership. Well taken and much respected. But moving on to TCC, thank you. Thank you for your efforts and your leadership to put forward our needs, fulfill the needs of my community. My 30-year fight, my prayers were answered. We now have an active VPSO in my community. Although I am blessed for this opportunity to take place, which has been a blessing for us, I will not be satisfied until, respectively, each one of our sub-regional villages get a VPSO in their community. And that's going to be a continued fight for all of us, of course, respectively, if the villages want it or not. And in that fashion, I want to add that our people are happy. Our children are happy in our village of Grayling. I have brothers. I call them brothers. I went to school and graduated with some of the boys in the force. They're my classmates that are serving as VPSOs. And that really means a lot to me when I'm able to call some of these individuals and talk with them. And I hear their hearts. You know, these individuals, we got to remember, are human beings just like us. We're in the village. I have access to any firearm in my household that I want at any point in time. And I use them for everything. I'm going out to haul wood, I'll grab my rifle. I'm going back to the landfill, I'll bring my rifle. We now have individuals in our communities that are carrying firearms that you cannot see. They're pistols. These are being packed amongst our people, whether we can see them or not, it's happening. You know, as we move forward in these touchy subjects, you know, we got to remember that our law enforcement has to go home at the end of the night as well. And our leadership as leaders in our regions, it's been a long haul. I'm grateful that kind of the weight off my chest is been narrowed a little bit by, I still am full support of our VPSO, but just him being there, I know that I'm not going to be that first call. And as a leader in my village, you know, that's what we did for the last 30 years. I've been in my village now in tribal politics for a long time. And that was our fight and our cry, and my elders' fight and cry from day one. These are now being answered. When we move forward in fashion of our people, it's protection of our people and our resources. This is a definite need that we need to keep in mind for both of us. As what I mean by our VPSOs being happy, being able to serve the village as needed. A lot of circumstances are really bad. I had a bad experiences, you know, most of you know, Rachel and I, through our son in Anchorage. So I support law enforcement fully. I put myself on the line many times as a leader. We had some cases come out where troopers were involved and wanted me to go on a trip with them here and there. What do? I grab my rifle right alongside them. They ain't going to tell me to leave it home. I'm going to be armed too. So when I'm asked to do these things, and the troopers had no problem with me being armed. If they're going to be asking me to go on a trip, damn right I'm going to be armed. So really touchy subject. I really respect the leadership, like I said. I know we have the opportunity to vote on behalf of sub-regional and village-wise if we want to be armed or not. So moving forward, let's remember that at the end of the day, we are trying to protect our people. Thank you.
Thank you. Spud?
Yeah. The VPSO program has really changed over the years. When we first started this program, all we did is get money from the state, hire local people to be the VPSO officer. Don't we have enough of our people shot in Fairbanks and Anchorage by armed police that we have to now start war within our villages and arm a VPSO so more people can get shot? This is crazy. We haven't had armed VPSOs, and the only time we've really had troubles is when we've had a bad VPSO that doesn't understand the village situation. How many of our VPSOs now are non-native? Most of the non-native police force shoot and then ask questions later. There should be a very rigorous orientation program for any VPSO who has not lived in a village and understands the situation going on in those villages. Otherwise, they're just going to shoot and ask questions later. This is a ridiculous concept. Besides that, it's very, very expensive for the insurance policy to arm a VPSO. We looked at that in the early days, and those costs for the insurance, once you arm that officer, are horrendous. Plus all the opportunity for lawsuits, for overkill. The word kill is going to happen.
expect those lawsuits to happen once we arm those VPSOs. I don't think it's a very good idea at all. Thank you.
Steve?
Thank you. You know, I have to disagree with what Spud just said. I think what needs to be understood here is that we're talking about our own people managing their own police force. And that's a huge difference from how state troopers are managed, how Fairbanks Police Department are managed. We're managing them. And that's why I brought up this excessive force policy. You know, that's an important part of law enforcement. But that policy is what's going to make a difference for our people. I don't believe that our VPSO people, folks, officers, is just going to literally go out there and shoot people. I don't believe that. I absolutely do not believe that. And we need to educate them about who it is they're working for. So there's respect built there with a community, you know. I think that's really key to the success of any VPSO in any of our villages, is integrating themselves into our community, being visible around our potlatches, around our dog races, around our basketball tournaments, etc. And important to be present to interact with the people in our community. That's, I think, is one of the keys to the success, would be the success of this program. Again, I want to emphasize excessive force policy. You know, Spud, I don't agree with your comment there. I really have trust in whether they're white, brown, black, whatever the color of their skin is, that's working for our people. I have trust in them. I personally would have trust in them. If we don't have trust in them, then we've already failed. You know? So I would just suggest that as you're moving forward, take a look at some of how we expect our VSPOs to operate within our communities. You know, some guidelines for them. It's hard for somebody that don't know our culture to come into a village not knowing how we operate internally, who we are, what our cultural values are, some of our ceremonies we do, stuff like this, you know. So I think that if you want to have some success, I really think that that's really should be a vital part of their training, other than going to training wherever you sent them. I guess you sent them to Sitka, wherever it is. Aside from that, additional training for them, I think would be very, very helpful to them. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Amber over here. I have a couple of questions. Is the VPO program still active? Or is it run by Tanana chiefs or the villages?
So it's a mixture, the tribal peace officer program. We partner with tribes to hire tribal peace officers, and they can be TCC employees, or the tribe can hire its own tribal peace officer. I don't have the numbers today as to how many non-TCC TPOs there are in the region, but we have 3 TPOs hired as TCC.
Okay, the other question is, when they first started this tribal court thing, I've been a tribal court judge for 20-some years. And when we first had the program started, Tanana chiefs had a program where we were trained to negotiate with the suspect. And I haven't seen that brought up because as first responders, there's angles in the book that you could negotiate with the suspect. And I'd sure like to see that brought back into the system. Teach the people how to negotiate. Because as individuals, we think that we could negotiate with anybody, but there's some tricks that you're taught by the training of negotiation. So I'd sure like to see that brought back into the system. Thank you.
Over here. My name is Andy Jimmy from Minto. About this VPO, we had it. I think we still have it. We got our own grant from DC, and worked pretty good. A lot of paperwork, but pretty good. And we still have. We had one this fall, but he didn't. He resigned, but we still have funds, I think, for it. But on this firearms, probably 8-10 years ago, they had a survey in all our subregion, 10 Yukon subregion, and we left it up to the people to see what they say, and our people said it's okay. It's okay for our VPSO to carry firearms. And there was other village that same way. I think if the people in the village say it's okay, I think we should listen to them. I don't know. But it's up to the people, I think, and the council always monitor the VPSO. So I don't see anything wrong with, we voted once on it and we said it was okay, and I still feel the same way. Thank you. Where are you turning?
So I have Pat, Speedy, Chief Green, and then the mic, and then Percy. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Patrick McCarty, alternate delegate for Ruby. We've come a long way since the days that Spud is remembering. But my thoughts and concerns is still intimidation. I know I heard that the VPSOs are trained and the state troopers are trained today to not just use their weapon, that kind of stuff, which is good to hear. Back in the day of commercial fishing, I had a state trooper taxi up to me in his float plane, asked to see me over in the bay when I get done on my wheel. I went over when I got done, and he stood with intimidation. He stood with his pistol, just body language, and irritated the heck out of me, and wasn't about to be intimidated. He started asking me about what other fishermen was doing. And so I just told him, hey, I've got X amount of dollars in my operation. I have no time to be worried about whatever other fishermen are doing. He said, good answer. Have a good day. Got in his plane and left. So, just I think with going, having our VPSOs and the troopers going to our schools and visiting with the school students, educating, and just the vest that they're wearing and the badge says a lot to me. I'm comfortable when we have a VPSO in Ruby. I have no concerns about any of our local people in Ruby going threatening or having some kind of confrontation with where a firearm is needed. So that's just my comment. I think probably we should take more time, go back to our individual villages and really talk about what was discussed here, and without showing any disrespect to anybody. I think I always like to see this thing says special full board of directors meeting. I don't hear all the full board voicing their thoughts or opinion yet. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Chief Speedy.
Yes, good morning. My name is Speedy Sam, Second Chief for Hooslia, alternate director for Hooslia. This is a really tough decision we're making today. First of all, I'm a first responder for my village, and I also first responder for some other village that I went to. With other, we have a few responders in each village. Just let you guys know that, being a first responder, to me, I'm protecting my people. That's number one thing for me, is protecting my people. Just recently, there's another. I went to a place that had an accident there, and I was going through the village and letting them know what was going on, and this young man came up to me and he said, and I told him what was going on. And I said, you might want to stay inside. And he looked at me and he said, Speedy, why are you out there driving the street and putting your life on the line? That really never came to my mind at the time. Because, I was just, being 4 years in the military, I was just protecting the people there. And that always just came to my mind. I don't worry about anything else. But, nowadays, my dad was a VPSO. He's a big guy. He's a big guy, and he could, he never had a really rough time with anybody. He went up to them and he talked to them, and not that I know of that he never did have to fight with anybody. But that was back in those days. Nowadays, we got all kinds of trouble going on. A lot of things going through our youth mind, our young people's minds. They think that's it. That's it in the world. They're not strong minds like our elders was. So being a first responder, that you gotta be. Not everybody could be a first responder. To tell you the truth. Some when I came back, somewhere the elders seen something in me, and I was a young man, and they pointed me to do this. I didn't say no. I did what they told me to, but going back to protecting our people. Nowadays, I'm gonna get, I'm gonna say this. Now I pack my pistol when I go to somewhere. And I never did that before. I never had to do that before, but lately I talked to another respondent from another village. I grabbed him and we went to that accident, and he told me, hey, I have my pistol. And I said, hey, me too. So, me and him and he was at another village. But we were thinking the same thing. To this day, I pray to God I don't have to use it. But protecting our people. Tuesday I still put my life online for them. But but with our people just going berserk and not know what they're doing, they gotta, they gotta know that what they're playing with. So arming our VPSOs, maybe that make them think twice. But but that's another thing is that might be losing another tribal member, another person in that village. So we're kind of like, what are we going to do here? Like Pat, Pat, I like the idea Pat did. We need more time to think about this. Like this is a special full board victors meeting, so maybe we could do this in the annual meetings. But yeah, we really are playing it 50-50 there. I just want to thank you.
Thank you. So I have Charlie, the mic, and then Percy.
Thank you. Thanks to the TCC board and also all the villages are here today to I believe join partnership with the TCC and also the VPSO and also the state trooper. And where I've come from, law and order is in place. But when there's a major deal, we request VPSO, which is good. We have a constitution written for the Native people. Also, the state of Alaska has their own constitution, same thing as the federal government. This constitution complies to the Native people. So the best interest for the Native people, their law, their health, their education should be really recognized better than what is written as those policy that we talk about. Those policy is, for example, TCC policy. You cannot even sell your native products on this land right here where this building is at TCC. Those policy really hurt the individual trying to earn a dollar for himself. The dollar is coming from federal and state government for a tribe to fill in the gap, fill in those good treatment, good policies written for the Native people. I mean, I'm not giving myself up here. We're a fee simple title ownership on the land. Those laws comply, that's written in that fee simple title land, it comply to all these Native people here. Those laws need to be recognized. We have policy for Native people on the good side of it. But there is fish and wildlife law that we have to comply with too. But we have a law saying that we could fish on the land, fish on our water, fish on the land and hunt.
preserve our fish and game, preserve our education on every land that we have, even if it's only a surface land that Native people live on there. That village council is a city government. That's how the law reads today. Those jurisdiction belongs to them. So we need to practice our sovereign immunity because that's a better way of for Native people. The state of Alaska 280 law, it's there. What you heard it today. Discrimination to the Native people because they have to subsistence. I heard an elder taking her grandchildren out hunting, and she's been pointed by VPSO and also the state trooper. You cannot do these things. So there's a boundary on the water side, the Yukon River. The Native village of Vinitai owns part of that section on the Yukon River. Every water in the middle of where people travel, that's the law of the land. So if you want to live the state government on the city way of how the state of Alaska approached Native people, to the point, it comes back to the policy again. We're not writing these policies where it should favor the Native people. The land is very important to people like me and these people here. That land should be written for Native people in a good way. I know we had a few accidents downriver over state trooper pulling first with their handgun. They come to our village with a semi-automatic. That doesn't really look good. They're not for that. I mean, people has a big heart in those villages. We have a tribal government that exercise the state government relationship with the federal government. I don't know what the state of Alaska, what kind of organization they have written. They said section 6, subsistence. And you know, when I hear subsistence, it's just a little fence around some animals. But we're looking at tribal government way of approaching the state of Alaska all the time. 280 law is only in the favor of the white people. Every one of them has a handgun right here, no matter if they're not a police officer or what. Native people, they just use their firearms to hunt and fish. But then we hear that there's a point. I'm ready to draw myself. That's what I hear today. And that's not very good. You guys need to go back and look at your policy and what is the state policy is for Native people. We're sovereign immunity people. We're sovereign. We live on the land. We feed off the land. Lowest River was there for us first. 1959. We're just right back just a few years ago. We, as a territory tribe, we've been living here. Generations, descendants. We're not selling off our descendants' way of life. We cannot do that. The federal government needs to understand that. I know you have a good president here today. He brought that self-government. He brought the laws in order for Native people. Exercise your laws. Vinitai, Native village of Vinitai, they've been complying with that. Whatever the state and federal government is approaching. There's always a divide between the state and the federal government. They forget about the tribe. When the treaty people went down to lower 48, they made a treaty. We didn't like that, the state of Alaska, because we want territory tribe in place for securing the native ways of life. I mean, maybe you're a VPSO director or whatever, you know? There's people out there is getting old. You need a new face with that VPSO. What are we facing today? We're leaving the education, the younger people out of the picture. Yeah, they need to be in place here. That's what I hear today. But fee simple title land owned by the tribe is the best interest for everybody. Because right now, oil and gas development, we're not in favor of it at all. Because we know that pipeline brought hell of a good cocaine, meth, alcohol, all these things that we've been enforcing, we've been enforcing that because we don't want it inside of our communities. So anybody that's living on the land, they're native people, they got a liquor store, do away with it, get rid of it. Because that generation is coming up today. There's a big gap between the 30-year-old kids that we never done anything with it. So I'm not pointing fingers. This is how the tribal government, law and order, tribal laws, sovereignty law, village law, city government law. We've been holding that force for a number of years, but we look at the feedback from the people that's working for the state employee. Some of the state and federal employee, they cannot even speak on the behalf of the native people within Alaska. What is it going on here? That's the way Vinny Arctic approached the world. We don't sign no documents or agreement because that's going to hurt the generation. I'm very sorry, but I have to come here and speak on the behalf of the native people in the state of Alaska. They got to show more respect for the native people. We're the descendant of the land. We have descendant out there going to college, like my grandchildren. They don't do drugs and alcohol. They buy their own home. They get their own education. This is what's been taught by their grandfather and grandmother. I turn around, my grandmother lived for 107 years on this land and brought up the Constitution law with the federal government. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. So we're at our time's end. I do have 4 people who wanted to share comments. If you can be brief, I have 4. And then we're going to ask a motion since it was supposed to be in action today, if there's a motion to defer it to the March convention. So first I have Chief Green.
Okay, I just wanted to say that, with our kids, are we teaching? We keep asking you guys if you're doing the right training, village, you've been into village trained. I mean, are we training our kids to respond, to be, proactive, to how to handle policemen? I mean, are we doing enough in our schools to, I have 5 sons that call me on Father's Day, and the talks I have to give them, I make sure to let them know, one simple thing with policemen or whatever, what the stop or I'll shoot means. If they totally understand what that means, it only means one thing. So you better know what that means and figure it out, that, because it only means one thing and you got to figure that out. I mean, be respectful when you have an officer stop. I mean, if he feels like he's trying to intimidate you, you have to outsmart him, But to teach them kids, have these guys come to our schools. It should be on a regular basis. Anytime we have a Naga meeting, they should have a policeman there with the youth and talking to them. This is how you should respond to an officer. We have to start doing better, doing our part, in our schools, our villages to figure out how to diffuse a situation. Show these kids in school. Try to, not to have them just as soon as they see an officer think, well, he's going to shoot me and I got to run. teach them that, hey, these guys are good guys. And, I mean, just try to, be respectful. Don't react the same way he's acting or whatever. But, I think we need to look at stuff like that, and as a e-board member, we need to be putting that stuff out there, working with these VPSO programs to get them in all our schools and get them in consistently. Don't come once every 10 years. But let's try to teach our own to react to you guys too. Not only depend on you guys to make sure you're not going to shoot us, but make sure that we, teach our kids, teach people how to intermingle and be more comfortable with when somebody has to stop you. Thank you.
Thank you. Percy was next. Did you still have comments? Yeah.
Yeah, I had some questions and some comments. I was going over these notes last night and all the information you guys were handing out and trying to figure out where exactly are you going to go with this. And that term pilot project, that kind of brought a question to mind about, maybe I need some clarification on that. We all know through previous meetings, Zoom meetings, conferences, summits, that we're hearing that myth is on the rise, and we have to understand that from our native communities and also your leadership. There's too much, we're powerless over other people's actions, and we need to understand what we need to do about this. So you mentioned earlier that there were some entities that's already armed, but I haven't heard. So I raised a question that what's the fatality rate of these entities that's carrying arms? And I'm aware anyway, that there's a trend going on. We know that there's a trend going on in Anchorage, and these are armed police officers that's actually shooting an unarmed person being victimized by pulling out a phone or, brandishing something hidden under their coats. So I'm just trying to get this scenario out, because if you see this kind of behavior out there, and I do understand that you have, you're authorizing an armed VPSO to take action if needed, because there's going to be lives on the line. So there's numerous times in my own life that I put myself on the line in Kaikuk. I get phone calls from a retired trooper now. He said, you need to get hold of this situation. Well, this situation I'm talking about, it's not a scenario where I have to be armed. There's already somebody that's laying out there. So I do take it in my own hands, and I call community members to take care of the situation. Well, I take care of it the best I could. And this went on for 10 or 12 years. Then this guy retired, and along came another one. Then he started calling me. He said, I need to call you because there's something going on down there in Kaikuk. Something already happened. I never ever thought I was putting myself in harm's way, but I was just putting myself there because I was needed, not by the state or by any means. It wasn't. I just wanted to be there to help. That was the bottom line. So wherever we go with this, if God's willing, we have to understand that there's going to be something going on out there way beyond our control. You know that. You're a trained officer, and we have this board here before you. But we have to know, and we have to put it in our hearts and minds and souls, saying that there's unforeseen circumstances that we're going to have to face, irregardless if you're armed or not. That's the way life is today, way different than 30 years ago. So, yeah, that was all I had, a comment and a couple of questions.
Thank you. So other organizations that have been armed, they just recently been armed for the past probably 3 or 4 months, and there's been 0 fatalities. David and I talked, and we're right now, VPSOs can use deadly force with other tools. It's something that they're allowed to, but it's important that they're making decisions on what tools are necessary. And as far as we know, there hasn't been a deadly use of force in the VPSO program. And just knowing there's unforeseen circumstances, that's the importance of making sure we're training our officers in decision making, so that they're always analyzing the situation and they're using the most appropriate tool or negotiation skills to de-escalate the situation. I have 2 more hands, and then we'll ask for the motion.
We need a VPSO in Alakakit. One sold up a couple of weeks ago, and he said he'll be back in 2 weeks, and I don't think he came back. We really need VPSO in Alakakit. Oh, yeah, that's it.
Thank you. And we can have David check in with you to talk about their schedule. And last.
Good morning, Nolato Tribe, Second Chief. And I had just one question. Would they have lethal or non-lethal bullets? And if they are able to carry their personal weapon as a secondary, would that have lethal or non-lethal bullets as well?
So any firearm we have would be lethal. We do have non-lethal options. Again, we're talking taser, baton, OC, things like that. As far as secondary weapons, there wouldn't be. Our policies right now would just be focused on the primary duty weapon.
Okay. So we're to the motion. Did you have motion language?
Hello?
Yes.
Did I get a respond about that pilot project question I had?
Oh, so the pilot project is for us to arm 3 VPSOs so that as an organization, we can learn, are our policies working? Is our training adequate? Are VPSOs making good decisions about what tools to use? And if it's successful, then we can move on to arming more VPSOs. If we see there's certain issues, then we can come back and see what policies do we need to change, what training do we need, so that we can learn whether to arm additional VPSOs or not. So we're asking the board. The action today was supposed to move with moving forward with a VPSO arming pilot project, and that was just to arm 3. And so that's
So what was the time frame on that pilot project?
we would have to define the time frame if we want to say within the first year, or do we want to say whether it's until the first critical incident. That's something that we actually would write down in policy when we're creating the VPSO arming pilot project policy. We would define what is successful, what is the time frame, what would happen for us to not arm VPSOs. So we would answer that in a policy.
Patrick McCarty, alternate delegate for Ruby. I'd like to entertain a motion to defer any action until our March meeting.
So Pat moved. Is there a second? Second by McGrath. Any discussion? Questions called. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
See how fun that is? Okay, so just to clarify, so we'll do that, and what I'll do is I'll work with the e-board, and the e-board will bring forth a resolution to that effect. So when we get to the March convention, we'll have a resolution on arming that we'll be able to discuss on the floor and vote up or vote down at that time.
Great job, everyone. Let's give them another warm applause of appreciation. And Sergeant Atterbury, if you could just chill because you're in the next panel. Friendly reminder that there are flu shots in the Rampart room right outside of this meeting room. They'll be meeting there if you want a flu shot until noontime. We're not going to take a called for break because we need to be out of the room by 11 just because they have another scheduled event in this room. So we understand there's going to be important discussion on the next topic, which is combating drug trafficking panel. If those who are involved can make their way up, Sergeant Adberry, Lieutenant Russell Fett, Andrew Baldock, Captain Cornelius Moose Sims, and Chief Charlie Green. Let's give them a warm welcome. Our guests are here to discuss the Combating Drug Trafficking panel. Drug trafficking continues to be a critical issue facing rural communities with devastating impacts on health, safety, and well-being. It is critical to prevent even the smallest amount of drugs from reaching our communities, as they have devastating and reverberating effects on our tribal members. David Atterbury will introduce and moderate the panel. Please give them a warm welcome. And Chief Green will make his way up here. I know that I saw him in the hallway visiting, and I know that we have short time together. We appreciate each of you. And Chief Green, I see him out there with a green piece of paper. Chief Green. Yay, Chief Green. Go ahead. I'll hand it over to you, Sergeant David Atterbury. Let's give them a warm appreciation of applause, please.
All right, good morning. Thank you. For those of you that weren't here earlier for my introduction, again, I'm First Sergeant David Atterbury. I've been a village public safety officer with Tanana Chiefs Conference for about 10 years now. I'm currently the MMIP investigator and the interim public safety manager. So we hear from the tribes about the importance of preventing drugs from entering our communities. Drug trafficking has become a terrible threat, particularly in rural areas where the smallest amounts have the most disastrous effects, impacting health, safety, and the overall well-being of our residents. So I want to talk about an incident that happened recently. So we had an officer in one of our communities. He got a tip that there was multiple individuals traveling by boat coming across the Canadian border with some drugs. He managed to interdict them with assistance from both state and federal agencies, was able to do a thorough investigation, seized boat, firearms. There was some illegal or some wildlife that was illegally taken that was seized as well. Bottom line was he prevented those drugs from coming into the community. So an incredible success story, but we all know that oftentimes that's not the case. The drugs are still coming in. So today we have an opportunity to engage in meaningful discussions, share valuable insights, and explore collaborative strategies that can help us combat this issue. Our panel consists of experts who bring a wealth of knowledge and experience that we can all learn from. So today on our panel, and unfortunately, Lieutenant Fett from Fairbanks Police Department couldn't attend, so we'll be short one, but we have Captain Cornelius Sims with the Alaska State Troopers Drug Enforcement Unit. Deputy District Attorney Andrew Baldock with the Fairbanks District Attorney's Office. And Chief Charlie Green with the Loudon Tribe. So starting with Captain Sims, what are the most prevalent drugs being trafficked in rural Alaska, and how have these trends changed over the past few years?
Yes, good morning. So what we're seeing throughout the state of Alaska, rural Alaska, is meth and fentanyl are our highest trafficked drugs in this state. We do have, I know, especially in the rural communities, we're seeing a lot of tramadol and gabapentin as well. Gabapentin is not a controlled substance, however, tramadol is. And so those are the main that we're seeing. Obviously, the change and trend that we have seen throughout the United States is the increase of fentanyl coming into the United States and then into our communities. Without taking up too much time, just so others have time, I can tell you that, fentanyl, everybody asks how it comes in. How do drugs get into Alaska, period? How does everything get into Alaska? It comes in through, you're either going to body carry it in or it's going to come in through a parcel of some sort. And so we have seen an increase of drugs coming up through source states, California, any state that has a flight that leaves directly from that state into the state of Alaska. So Washington, Oregon, California, Arizona, Illinois, Nevada, New York now. Those are pipelines for individuals to bring drugs in through body carrying or in their parcel or luggage. And then, of course, through parcel, same way you would get anything into the state, be it UPS, FedEx, United States Postal Service. And not jumping in further into that, save for later, is we have an app for all those as far as how we're working to interdict those drugs coming in through those means.
Thank you, sir. Chief Green, what are you seeing in your community, and what are the main factors driving drug trafficking there?
I would say because Galena is a hub, we fly, it's got a big airport. Most of the villages, before they get to any one parts of our sub-region, usually come to Galena, and so we have, I think that's the way a lot of drugs get in there. And then we have the open summertime waterway. It's a really easy way for drugs to get into our communities, because it's wide open, whether it's boat or snow machine. I think they use a lot of that to, because they've caught on a little bit to air service stuff. We got guys, we work really good with Wrights and Everett's about search, what we can do and what we can't. So I think that because we're a hub, that's where most of that stuff comes in.
Are you seeing a particular drug more frequently than others?
I think, because we actually had a death with fentanyl but I think, and plus we have that school there, that's a really big target for, not necessarily the harder drugs, but for the, gummy things, all that kind of stuff, I don't know if even the marijuana, vape pipes, stuff like that, we have influx of lots of different people.
Deputy DA Beldock, what role does mental health treatment play in your approach to drug-related offenses?
Well, first of all, for those who might not know, the Fairbanks DA's office covers just a huge geographical area, really the largest prosecutorial unit in the country. Everything south to where Denali National Park is, where the feds take over, all the way north to the Arctic Ocean, east to the Canadian border, and west essentially to Galena. We've got 7 different courthouse locations and roughly 16 prosecutors and 2 offices to cover that area. Regarding mental health, obviously that's a huge area, a huge concern. In any drug case that we prosecute, and ultimately there's a conviction obtained, certainly that person, whether or not it's trafficking or simply just a user, and obviously a lot of users are also traffickers, are ordered to do incomplete substance abuse treatment. And certainly as a part of that, if there's mental health issues, that is ordered as well. If they don't do that, that's a condition of their probation. They end up going back to jail. But certainly I recognize that there's a lot more that can be done regarding mental health. And that's something that we continue to work on.
Great, thank you. So we've heard a little bit about the environment of drug trafficking in Alaska, but let's talk about some of the challenges of preventing drugs from entering our communities. So throughout the country, and especially in Alaska, we have a limited number of law enforcement resources. All agencies are struggling to recruit and retain. As you've heard earlier, we've got 14 VPSOs here in the interior, 3 tribal police officers. And Captain, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that the commissioner recently said AST is down about 70 or 80 positions. Okay. So it's quite a challenge. I know FPD is always been challenged to recruit and retain officers as well. So with one officer in a village at a time, when we have an officer in a village, trying to interdict those drugs coming into the community, our traffickers know that, and they work around our schedules. We had I've had some in communities where they know that I can't work 24/7, so they just adjust their schedule to be opposite mine. They bring it in at 4 o'clock in the morning because they know I've already put in 10, 12 hours and I've got to sleep at some point. So they learn that, and those resource challenges are a huge issue for us. Chief Green talked about some of the multiple ports of entry. They know that we're checking the airlines, so they look for bringing it in by boat, by snow machine, private airplanes sometimes. And again, there are multiple ways, into our villages. So 1 officer, 2 officers, it's really a challenge to interdict those. Many people in the community also fear retribution, right? These folks can be dangerous. It's their livelihood. And so confronting them or reporting them oftentimes has consequences. And so we're also struggling with a challenge of not getting, good quality reports of the drug dealings as well. So oftentimes we hear after the fact. So these challenges demonstrate the importance of developing community-oriented solutions that include coordinated efforts among all agencies, both state, local, federal, as well as working with our communities to ensure that we're doing culturally sensitive prevention, that we're looking at treatment programs, and that we're involving not only local leaders, but also community members. So one more question to any of our panelists that would like to take it, and then we'll open it up for questions. So the question is, when it comes to tackling drug trafficking, what are some opportunities community leaders have for collaboration with your agency?
I'll go ahead and take that one first. The State of Alaska Department of Public Safety does have a reporting way to report that. It's called Tips 411. You can report anonymous. There is a way, if you first bring it up, you can use it from your phone or your computer. If you use your phone, it's actually a little bit better because you can actually chat back and forth with one of our analysts. Now it has to be during business hours. Otherwise they're going to hit you back up when they're back in the office, but they can chat with you back and forth on that Tips 401 app and discuss what you're seeing to help us with the interdiction. Interdiction work I could talk about for hours upon hours because I'll tell you right now, there's 29 Alaska State Troopers, including myself and a lieutenant, that are dedicated to drug interdiction and drug enforcement in the whole state of Alaska. And then, of course, we work with our federal and local partners in these efforts. But that Tips 401 app is probably one of the ways that we have seen a lot of information come in. Individuals are more willing to put information out there. Like I said, if you first look it up, it's going to say you need to be subscribe. But if you like everything, you scroll down to the bottom, it'll say continue as a guest, and you continue as a guest and provide information as far as trafficking, any drug trafficking or any drug information you may have. And it's free to use. And I get those reports. All my guys get the reports, but I see them every day when they come in. So that's one way community can engage us, as well as get a hold of me. I'm willing to come out to any community and discuss with community leaders. I've done so and more in Western Alaska, but I would love to come to any of your communities and speak with the leaders about what we can do and how statewide drug enforcement unit can help your community.
Thank you, Captain.
Thank you. I think probably the most important for, is to start with your council. Your council can't be scared. In Galena, we, when we first, figured out this drug dealer was selling, drugs to our kids there. I guess it was, I don't know if it was 9 or 10 medevacs they had in a week, and, selling, gummy, stuff that these kids weren't used to. And nowadays we talk about all the stuff being laced with everything. Who knows what that stuff is laced with, whether you're smoking it, eating it, or whatever. But, we started with our community guys, our council members taking pictures and doing things, but it's all in your community collaborating, and you can't be scared to, we're not scared to do, having to call numbers, depending on the state troopers or in any law enforcement. We try to do our part first, and working with each other and not being afraid, because there is, you get backlash not only from the drug dealers, but their families, because they want to protect them too. They don't care, so, we first probably, and you see it was just the last few weeks, we had a lady from Galena finally pleaded guilty, got 2 years, to serve for selling drugs to our local school there. It took first the collaboration with TCC to start. We started trying to build these relationships, figuring out how are we going to, go ahead and to make this a successful drug bust. And I think not for Galena, but for all our villages out there, I think it's real important to let them drug dealers know that this can happen. It can, the gentleman sitting right next to me is a, district attorney, it was a lot of different pieces, a lot of different things had to fall into place for that to happen. But, all you other villages, you see it can happen, and it scares them. The drug dealers will know that, hey, I don't want to get 2 years in jail or whatever, whatever the charges that you can pile up on them. But, TCC first of all. I mean, without them, we would have never got it. No, there would be no chance. So, you know, gotta use Tanana Chief Services and their communication. They have really good communication with the troopers, and it's really good to hear this the state trooper over here that, you know, come into your villages, invite him, get him in there and talk to him, and you know, he could probably give you lots of good pointers on you know, things to do, things to watch out for. But I'm just really glad that we got this conviction and we waited patiently all this time, and there's still going to be backlash. I still get, you know, from their family, you know, they still accuse me of kicking some elderly lady out of Galena, and you're no good, and you're, you know, you're a bad chief because you do, you know, what are you going to do with her? You're going to leave her somewhere? But, you know, we can't worry about that. If we want to protect our villages, protect our kids, we want to keep drugs out, this is the kind of stuff we have to do. And you can't, you know, depend on the troopers and people to do your jobs for you. We got, as leaders, got to do our own jobs. You can't be scared to stand out there and put yourself out there. If, you know, like lots of the chiefs say, we protect our people, and that's our jobs, and we just have to take the, you know, the flak for it. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Well, I know we're running short of time here, so we've got about 10 minutes left. Are there any questions?
My name is Margaret. I'm from Circle. We, as the Yukon Flats area, we have issues. We have a highway. At the end of the highway, there's a river, and it's being transported from Fairbanks, the highway, and the river into the villages. And we've have in the past reported that, but nothing has been done. I believe that we need some kind of a enforcement at this highway here or at the riverbank to protect our kids that's, you know, in the Yukon Flats area and the other villages. And also, I like to see, you know, something like that be put in place. And one time I have called the state troopers and told them that there's selling going on here in this community here. And I says, I know it is going on. We've seen it. And you know the activity that goes on when there's drugs in town. And the trooper asked me if I've seen the drugs. I says, no, I haven't seen it, but I know that it is there. Can you kind of come in and look into it? They never did. That's a kind of response we get from Alaska State Troopers. So I'd like to see more enforcement done in that area, the roads and the river. Thank you.
Thank you. I know that we are working with Circle on a agreement so that we could potentially get you a VPSO out there. So.
Good morning. Thank you guys for being here. My name is Julie Roberts-Hyslop. I'm the first chief for the native village of Tanana. And, you know, we have a very active tribal court in Tanana. And one of the things, you know, that I would think maybe we could partner up with, you know, the state troopers and the district attorney's office, you know, on how we could help our own people deal with, you know, some of the problems that they have. And Curtis, our second chief, you know, continuously brings up the fact that we need more information, we need more education out there with our community members, with our young people, you know, to show them, to teach them, to help them learn about, you know, what these substances are and what it can do to you. And we see very little of that going on in our communities right now. And I think, you know, that's something, that's a good place to start. So, you know, we do a lot of, we have lots of cases, you know, that we that we undertake continuously. And a lot of it, you know, we have to take children under our custody, you know, because, you know, of parents using. And, you know, we really try hard to help the families, you know, remain as a unit. But if they don't cooperate, you know, then we have to think long-term for the, you know, benefit of our children. And it's a really tough job, you know, having to do that, you know, but we give them ample opportunity to go to treatments. And some of them, you know, really do take that up and they change, you know, for the better. And so we give them lots of opportunities. But, you know, I think a good place, you know, for TCC to start is to really start getting that information out there. You guys have a big wellness department. You guys have a prevention department. Yet we see very little happening out in our villages right now. And a lot of concentration going on here in Fairbanks. So please bring those programs out to our villages and start helping us teach our young people about how they can live a good, safe, healthy future life. And I really welcome you guys to our community to help us, you know, teach our kids, help our young people. Because, you know, we got to give them every chance. You know, they only have one chance in life. And, you know, we heard a lot of good things, you know, the last couple of days about, you know, culture and traditions and values. And so we got to continue to do that. But I just thank you guys for what you do, you know, because your job is very important to us. What you do makes a difference for the safety of our people. And that's what we need right now. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie. Just so you know, that we just started working with Wellness and Prevention on their drug awareness programs. And so our officers are also trained in those programs. And so we'll be rolling those out throughout the communities. So.
Hi, Chief Nikolai Hughes. I want to recognize Margaret Williams.
Hi. Back in 1988, I was a tribal police officer, and I was like 2 months into the job, and I needed to raise my kids, so I signed up. I came into a situation where we were shot at. I have not a great fear, but I've had problems, like Charlie had said, our kids just take off and run. What I'd like to see is have an intern program or adopt a program where most recently I seen the Nakanaga, our grandmas, helping Fairbanks Police Department make fur hats and mittens. I think it would be worth all our efforts if we could do that in our communities, go to our schools and get in a cooperative with students so they too can overcome their fears. I believe that if we did this, we would instill a unity and we'll all be helping each other out. And that's it.
Thank you. So all of our VPSOs are encouraged to spend quite a bit of time in the school. Matter of fact, we recommend they start out their shift by visiting the school. And I know that the troopers, when they come into the villages, that's one of the things that they often do too. So we try to get out there as often as possible and work with the kids. We recognize that they're the future of our communities and the importance of positive interactions with them.
Manley recognized Janet Woods.
Thank you. You know what I really appreciate what Julie Islip had said, But I wanted to add on that, with the use of marijuana, it's legal in the state of Alaska now. And I really think it's important that we start educating especially our high school kids. And it always has to start from the younger, working up to high school, because a lot of them want to work, they want to get out of the villages, they want to get a job. And I don't know if they realize that a lot of places require a drug test in order to get a job. And I think we really need to really start educating our kids, because a lot of them, I don't think they realize that, if they have a dirty UA, there's no way they're going to get a job. And so I really think that's important, because the legalization of marijuana, and it's in all our villages, and we know it. We can't say it's not, because it's there. And so I think if we really want to start helping our youth, and if they need to, and if they want to work and get a job, they need to be educated in that area. So I think it's important, because sometimes when we talk with our kids, they because they hear us all the time, it just kind of goes over their head. And so I think it's important that, we have the staff here, and you yourself, that we need to start approaching the villages and the schools, and start at a young age. At a young age, because, the kids, the little kids, their mind is like a sponge. They take everything in. So I think it's important now that we start educating, because they're our next generation. They're coming up behind us. And if we don't start educating them on the use of drugs, and trying to get an education and work, marijuana can't be part of that. Anabasi.
Thank you.
Chief James, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Sitting in front, you can't really hear me good. Thank you. I want to encourage, the question is that how long and what are we doing with drug trafficking? That's an increase. I think tribal court is doing an awful lot of good things in implementing and working with VPSO, implementing blue tickets. But I think we need to support them. This is something we need to support people, especially the tribes that have made a step forward, and then have them on a panel also. What has failed? What can we do better? Support them better also with finances, because there's a need. It affects people, it affects family, and especially in placement for the children when we make a decision. And I think we need to really fund our tribal court much better, because you got to have that 93-638 to implement blue ticket. And they make a stand. These judges and tribal council make a stand on blue tickets. They're out there and they're being threatened. I know I have been for standing up for that. And I know exactly what Chief Green is talking about. But we have, if we want to continue to protect, I keep hearing the last 2 days about, we need to really prevent the preschoolers. Start from the preschool in the REAAs. We only got 5 REAAs. I think we need to do a little better in our education and programs and work with the REAAs. I don't see why we don't have prevention programs in there. I know there's a law, but I think it could be, since we have to work together, I think we need to start on that system, in that REA. But I also like to encourage, and I like to commend all the tribes within our region of 40 villages that have stood up and stepped forward. Don't give up. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And I was just given the notice that we need to wrap it up. And so if there's any other questions, I'm happy to take them on the side here.
I have a question. I would like to talk on this drug thing. I have been working 20 years or 30 years with drug people. And anytime you allow any kind of your kids to be around people that do drugs or drinking or any kind of drugs, I'll bet you in about 80% of the time, the little kid that been around drugs will do drugs. And the thing is, you need to keep it out of your village. Every one of you sitting to the table here, every one of you have a relative or somebody that's selling drugs, and that's keeping you down. You need to learn to turn in your own relatives for selling drugs. And on top of that, I know somebody that went to jail and went right back to the village and is selling drugs again, and nothing is happening. You are killing your own kids by letting drugs into your village. That meth is a very bad problem. It makes your mind numb, it makes you dumb, and it gives you heart problems. That's why you see so many young people in their 30s, 20s having heart problems. It's because of the meth. And meth is made out of anything. And when meth is smoked in a house or made in a house, the house is condemned because anything you touch, if you bring in a brand new baby and the baby touches something where there's meth, the baby could die or you could die. And we need to keep the drugs out. And anytime we call a state troopers, they will say, "Oh, are you the witness? Did you see it?" The very same people that go to jail and come back and sell drugs, they have brand new cars, they have brand new snow machines, they have brand new everything. And everybody in the village know who it is. I think people need to learn to turn in their own relatives and stop it. We need to save our kids. The reason the cops shoot young men is because they're on drugs and alcohol. So we need to stop the drugs and alcohol in the villages and stand up for your rights. Don't be scared. You have to fight for your kids.
Thank you, Darlene. Second Chief, Charlie Titus, if you can keep your comment
it'll
brief.
be
Thank you,
short.
sir. Yes.
Okay, I just want to thank state troopers or the law enforcement on drugs. Thank you. I know you saved some lives. And I want to bring this up. A lot of us are grandparents and parents. We know what it does. We've seen it. I've experienced that, some of my family. And it's devastating to go up and tell your relative, one of theirs have died. As council members, the chiefs, they're the first ones to get that call. And it's hard on them. I used to hate to pick up that phone at night, knowing that there's going to be bad news. So it's trying on all of you leaders. You know that. You've experienced it yourself. Not only drugs, alcohol, anything that happens in the community, you're the first one that have to respond, even before the troopers get there or the VPSO. And it hurts us. And this drugs. A lot of our grandparents, I'm a grandparent. I have a lot of teenagers coming up here. And I've already, from relatives, have seen it happen to them. And I'm sure a lot of you have. It hurts. I mean, if you don't want that call to say, hey, your child, your grandchild is gone because of And I'm sure Charlie Green know what I'm talking about. These things that happen to our community. It hurts. We're small communities, and it hurts every one of us. And it's the unity of Tanana Chiefs that hurt all of us. I just want to make that, and thank you again for what you're doing.
Thank you, Charlie. And let's give them a warm applause of appreciation for everything that our public safety does, please. And thank you, Sergeant Atterbury, for everything you do, and we appreciate you spending your time being in public safety for Tanana Chiefs Conference. Masi. And we have a gift for our guest panelist, Andrew. We have a birch basket by Lena Ticket from Kobuk and a jar of salmon. We also have a gift for Captain Moose Cornelius. And finally, a gift for Chief Green. They all have the same thing, a birch basket and a jar of salmon. Masi. And we have a lost and found item here while Chief Brian is making his way up here. I don't know whose it is, but I'll put it right here. Money, is that yours? Okay, I'll bring it to you. Let's give them another warm applause, please. And Chief Brian is back at the stage.
Okay. Well, first off, I want to apologize a little bit. As we were trying to plan this meeting, we're having to plan it knowing we're trying to place it where we could get the most time with all of you here. And with the Westmark, this was the 3-day or 2.5-day that we were able to do. And they had told us we need to be out by 11 because there's another event coming in right after us. So I apologize for that. I've got the lovely Vanna White, or Paul Mountain, sorry, helping me with the survey. So let's see. We'll draw 3 winners from all of the tickets that were here, trying to be fair. And then we've got 2 that were online for all the online entrants. So drum roll. Gee, just fast. Like Price is Right. Oh, sorry. I've got them right here. What did I say? 250, I think they are, each one. Fabulous cash and prizes. Crystal Druck. I know I saw. We were at the hall last night and we got out there dancing and I could hear her. I could tell she was right behind me. And I had to tell her, gee, just like old times, we were in the play at Alaska Land long time ago. Let's see. Josie Dayton. Josie Dayton. Come on down. I'm trying. And the last in-person winner? Marie Kachek. Auntie Marie. Is she here?
She was here.
Okay, room next door.
Rampart. Oh, she's in the Rampart room.
Oh.
I'll give it to her.
You're going to Rampart?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Let's give them a hand. Oh, right there, they say. You want to walk it down there? Okay, thank you. And then for all the online entrants that we had, we've got Amos Frank and Teresa Christensen. So those are the other two winners. So for the online ones, let's see. Please reach out to Shelly Johnson at 452-8251, our main number, extension 3044 to get your prize. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so my wrap up. Thank you to all of our delegates for joining us here this week for these important discussions. And thank you to everyone who shared their insights. At TCC, we're always working to improve our services to all of you, and we deeply value your partnerships and feedback. We had some strong, meaningful discussions this week, and I encourage you to reach out at any time. Don't feel like you have to wait until March to bring up concerns and questions. Our door's always open, so please stay in contact. Before we adjourn, I'd like to remind everyone to review the proposed bylaw technical amendments in your packets that Sharon went over yesterday. That way, much like the VPSO, you'll be able to go through that, discuss it if you need to with your councils, and come back prepared in March to vote on those changes. Also, the e-board will be bringing forward a resolution in March regarding the VPSO arming discussion for consideration at that time. As your tribes discuss this important decision, please feel free to ask any questions or invite staff to your meetings to present or to help answer any questions. Now, as one of the final reminders, as we move into the holiday season, I encourage all of us to take care of one another and check in with others in our communities. I know it can be a real tough time for some of our people. It's important that we look after each other and continue to build up the strength and resilience of our communities. Masi Cho, and safe travels to you all. Now, let me see. I want to make sure I don't forget anything here. Before I wrap up there was a request, so I want to ask our elders. I was told Andy, Nancy, Anna, our elders had asked to be able to close us out in prayer and pray over all of our chiefs of our region. So if they want to come up, and any other elders that want to come up and close us out in prayer, you're more than welcome to come on up here and do that. Yeah. Oh, we need a microphone though.
Yeah. Really informal. Yeah. I think I did come up there in circle. I think we've been talking about tradition and culture, and I think we remember what Reverend David Simon and others have said to us. Always remember each other and help each other, but most of all, to recognize God that leads us. We're not here as chiefs for nothing. It's His will, and we need to remember that we're there to serve our people, and sometimes it's tough. And I just want to, that's why I requested it, because being a chief, I know you're jack of all trades. You're the first one to be called, be accused of everything else, but you got to stand strong. You are elected to take care of our people, and I know that you know that. And thank you for stepping up. I see a lot of young people stepping forward. I just want to say Masicho.
Oh, thank you, Jace. Thank you. I just wanted to say, before we go into prayer, those of you that read your Bible, there was this man at the well, practically all his life, sat at the well. And people brought him the food or helped him out because he couldn't walk. And Jesus came by and healed this man. And that's us. We are at that well. And when our good Lord heals us, that means we have to start doing things for ourselves. We have to learn to walk, talk, and reach out to other people. So that's your task. Don't be like the man at that well, just lay there and wait and wait and wait. Do something for yourself and for your village. We're ready to go. The Lord be with you. Let us pray. Creator God, we come before you with everything that we have in our hearts and our minds. We ask you to reach out to us. Help us to get up and walk and talk. We ask you to be with our leaders that go back into the villages. We know that's not an easy job, and they work hard. Help us to teach our young to listen to our elders and to walk in that walk they taught us. Give them the strength that they need. Watch over their families. And Lord, we ask you to take them home safely and return to their families. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
So with that, do we have a motion to adjourn? By Julie, second. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, same sign. We're adjourned. Thank you all.